Good morning. In this mission, we will practice the startup procedure for the A10C. There's a lot to cover, so feel free to take a break by pressing the pause key at any point. It will be important for you to follow my instructions to the letter. Do not jump ahead and start mashing buttons and throwing switches. I will guide you toward the desired controls or highlights, and I'm referring to the front dash and left and right consoles. You can pan around the cockpit using your view control commands or these switches. If you find it hard to hear my instructions or the background noise, turn down the world and in-cockpit sound slider to about 50% in the options menu. As described in the flight manual, the pre-flight check is normally performed prior to startup to ensure the aircraft is configured properly. However, for the purposes of this lesson, we'll begin the startup sequence with the aircraft's initial configuration set as it would be at the start of all missions. The startup procedure will consist of initiating electrical power, starting the APU, followed by the left and right engines, and finally powering up and preparing all essential avionics. Press the spacebar key when you are ready to begin.
Pull up, pull up. Altitude, altitude.
First, set the battery switch on the electrical panel on the right side console to power. This will provide power to the DC buses and the APU. Follow the highlight at the bottom right corner of the screen to locate the switch. Good. Now set the inverter switch on the same panel to standby.
Chief, remove the
This will
wheel
allow
chocks.
AC power to be supplied to numerous aircraft instruments.
Copy.
It will also provide power
Wheel
to
chocks are now
designers.
removed.
With electrical power now running, we can take a moment to test the caution and warning systems to make sure that we will receive warnings in case something goes wrong during startup. To do this, press and hold the lamp test button on the auxiliary lighting panel on the left console. Take a look around the cockpit while you hold down the button to make sure that all of the caution lights are functional and you can hear an audible warning tone. Everything looks good. Now let's test the fuel indicator to make sure it's functional and accurate. The fuel indicator is located on the right side of the front dash. When tested, the tube needle should point to 3,000 pounds, and the digital totalizer readout should be around 6,000 pounds. On the oxygen regulator panel, set the supply switch to on, and check for oxygen flow to be indicated in the flow window.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
Press the Oxy-In test, oxygen indicator test button to test the oxygen remaining indicator.
Refueling
Press
complete.
the Oxy-Low caution light on the caution lights panel to turn on when the indication falls below 0.5 liters. Set the UHF radio function dial to main to power the UHF radio. We are now ready to begin the engine start sequence, but let's first close the canopy to minimize the noise.
Rearming
Hold
complete.
the canopy control switch to lower the canopy or press left control plus C on the keyboard. Starting the engines will take several minutes and require a few steps. First, we need to provide power to the boost pumps of the left and right wing tanks and left and right fuselage tanks. You will find the 4 switches on the fuel system control panel toward the top of the left console. Set all 4 switches to the up position. Before starting the engines, we need to start the auxiliary power unit, APU, which will generate clean air used to start the main engines. As you start the APU, be ready to monitor the APU exhaust gas temperature, EGT, and RPM gauges on the engine monitoring instruments EMI panel located on the bottom right of the front dash. Go ahead and set the APU's start switch to start.
Chief, turn on the ground power. Copy.
Now let's
Ground power
return
is
to the
now
electrical
on.
panel and set the APU generator switch to the power position. This will allow the APU generator to power the aircraft and release the battery. However, the battery needs to remain on as a backup electrical source. While on the electrical panel and in preparation of the engine start sequence, let's also set the left and right AC generators up to power. Once the engines are started, they will begin to turn the AC generators and take over from the APU to provide electrical power. Okay, time to crank up the left engine. This is a very simple process initiated simply by moving the left throttle from off to idle or pressing the right off plus home keys. This will automatically start fuel flow, move lead air from the APU to turn the fan, and then ignite the fuel in the combustion chamber.
Hey, what are you doing?
Welcome to the cold start lesson, Cadet. Today we will practice starting up the Huey and getting her ready for flight. Press the spacebar key when you are ready to begin. helicopter. Welcome to the Cold Start lesson, Cadet. Today we will practice starting up the Huey and getting her ready for flight. Press the spacebar key when you are ready to begin. Before we begin, press right Control and C to close the cockpit doors. First, we need to provide electrical power to the aircraft. This can be done with the help of the ground crew, but we'll use onboard power. Take a look on the overhead console. On the AC power control panel, set the AC phase voltmeter selector switch to AC and the inverter switch labeled INVTR to off. Now on the DC power control panel, set the main generator switch to on and the DC voltmeter selector switch to ESS bus, essential bus. Next, set the starter generator switch to start and turn on the battery. Don't worry, that's just the low RPM warning blaring, which is normal right now. Press the low RPM audio switch to acknowledge the warning. Let's also test the caution lights panel to make sure all of the lights are operative. Set and hold the test switch in the down position. Make sure all of the caution lights are on. Next, on the engine control panel, set the main fuel switch to on and the governor switch to auto. All other fuel switches should be off. On the miscellaneous control panel, set the hydraulic control switch to on, the force trim switch to on, and make sure the chip detector system is set to both. Before starting the engine, we need to make sure the throttle is set to idle. The throttle is located on the grip of the collective control handle next to the pilot's left leg. The throttle is twisted left using the page up key to increase it, and right using the page down key to decrease it. Press and hold the page down key for a few seconds to make sure the throttle twist grip on the collective control handle is set to the idle stop position. Also, make sure the stick and pedals are in the neutral position and the collective is fully lowered. You can check the position of the controls on the controls indicator by pressing right Control and Enter. To start the engine, you will need to press and hold the home key on the keyboard to pull the engine start trigger located beneath the switch box of the collective control handle. As the engine spools up, you will need to monitor the engine instruments and the clock. The engine start button needs to be held down until the gas producer speed reaches 40% or 40 seconds have passed on the clock, whichever comes first. You should also see the rotor begin to turn around 15% of gas producer RPM. If this does not happen, abort the start sequence. Whenever you're ready, begin the ignition sequence by pressing and holding the home key on the keyboard to pull the engine start trigger. Don't forget to note the time and watch the gas producer indicator. The helicopter will toss you around quite a bit as the rotor spins up. Let me know if you need to use the bag. Okay, we're idling normally. Let's set up the avionics. Back on the overhead console, turn on the inverter by setting it to main on. We'll now power up the radio systems. Set the AM-APX-72 transponder to standby, STUI, by right-clicking once over the master switch. Turn on the AM/ARN 82 VHF NavCom radio by right-clicking on the power switch once. Turn on the AM/ARC 134 VHF COM radio by right-clicking on the power switch once. Turn on the AM/ARC 51BX UHF radio by setting the function switch to T-on, transmit receive. Set the interphone selector switch to 3 to set the VHF COM radio for transmission. This will allow you to communicate with ATC. To communicate with WinMet, you will usually transmit over the UHF radio, which is positioned 2 on this switch. Turn on the AM/ARC 131 VHF FM radio by setting the mode switch to T-on, transmit receive.
Springfield 1-1, passing
Turn on the
waypoint 1 at
AM/ARN
3000.
83 ADF receiver by setting the mode switch to ADF. To complete the avionics setup, set the starter generator to standby SDY on the overhead console. Let's now run up the engine to normal power. Press the page up repeatedly and monitor the engine and roll of the indicator as power increases. Continue to slowly add power until the throttle grip on the button is twisted all the way to the left. Watch the engine RPM to stabilize at 6600 and rotor RPM on 324. Right-click over the test switch on the master caution light to reset. If the engine RPM is off the 6600 mark, you can use the governor RPM switch on the collector, also known as the key switch, to adjust the RPM as necessary. The helicopter is now ready for takeoff. This concludes the cold start lesson. Well done.
In this lesson, you will learn how to start the aircraft from a cold and dark state. The essential pre-flight is done, with cockpit controls and switches set to the operator's manual conditions. Remember that you can pause the lesson at any time by pressing pause key on your keyboard. Options and brackets are keyboard keys or can be bound to your devices by pressing escape, then selecting Adjust Controls menu. Important shortcuts can be found in the briefing by pressing Left Alt plus B. If you see pilot bodies, press Right Shift plus P to hide them for easier cockpit control visibility. During the lesson, you should first listen to or read the messages, then perform the steps as instructed. First, observe the collective on your left side and ensure the throttle is in the closed position. Compare its position with the image on the left side of the screen. The throttle can be bound to an axis or a set of 3 options called throttle closed, throttle idle, and throttle full open. Become familiar with the throttle range of movement by practicing the following.
Good morning, pilot. Today we will learn the procedures to cold start, taxi, and takeoff in the F-5E. Press space when you are ready to begin.
Request rearming. Copy.
Attention. If you have a gaming device that controls the aircraft's throttle, set it to idle position. The ignition system can operate from both an external ground power supply and the onboard battery. Alternate current is provided by two generators attached to the left and right engines.
Rearming
Each
complete.
generator is enabled when engine RPM reaches 48% and stops generating when RPM is reduced to less than 43%. On the right vertical panel are two 3-position switches marked L-Gen and R-Gen with a reset. The fuel system of each engine has its own boosted pump, which automatically provides fuel to the fuel system, including the afterburner pumps. Set the booster pump switches to the upper. An engine can only be started with compressed air provided by an external ground start unit. Compressed air spins up the engine compressor, which in turn provides air supply to the combustion chamber, creating a fuel-air
Connect
mixture.
ground air supply.
Connect to the compressed air supply unit.
Copy.
/radio
Ground
menu.
air supply is
F8
now connected.
Ground crew. F5 ground air supply. F1 connect. Once the ground crew. Always start the left engine first and then the right one. The right engine can be started with the help of compressed air from the ground unit or from the left engine compressor. Give the command to the ground crew to spin up the engine rotor. /radio menu. F8 ground crew. F5 ground air supply. F3 apply.
Chief, apply ground air supply. Copy. Air is now applied.
Once RPM reaches 10%, press the start button for the left engine located on the left vertical panel by use of the mouse or by pressing the left control plus left shift plus C keys. Then, set the left engine throttle to the idle position by pressing the right alt plus home keys. When the throttle is set to the idle position, fuel is supplied to the engine and will reach idle RPM within 35 seconds. As a result, idle RPM is 49 to 52%. Exhaust gas temperature is no less than 140 degrees Celsius. Temperature can for a short time reach higher levels, but should never exceed 845 degrees Celsius. Nozzle position is 60 to 79% from full open. Fuel consumption is around 400 pounds per hour. Oil pressure is 5 to 20 psi. After the left engine has been started, you must check. Pressure in the utility hydraulic system is 2,800 to 3,200 psi. Auxiliary intake doors position indicator displays zebra. Intake doors of the left engine are opened, the right ones are closed. Using external F2 view, you can see the position of the intake doors using the external camera. To continue, return to the cockpit F1 and press space. The right engine start procedure with help of the external compressed air is similar to the start of the left engine. The ground crew will automatically switch compressed air from the left engine to the right engine once the left engine reaches idle. Give the commands to the ground crew to spin up the right engine compressor. \radio menu, F8 ground crew, F5 ground air supply, F3 apply.
Chief, apply ground air supply. Copy. Air is now applied.
Once the right engine RPM reaches 10%, press the right engine start button located on the left vertical panel using the mouse or pressing the left control plus left shift plus V keys. Then set the right engine throttle to the idle position. The right engine is now reaching idle RPM. Monitor engine-related gauges. Idle RPM is 49 to 52%. Exhaust gas temperature is no less than 140 degrees Celsius. Nozzle position is 60 to 79 full open. Fuel consumption is around 400 pounds per hour. Oil pressure is 5 to 20 psi. Pressure in the booster hydraulic system is 2,800 to 3,200 psi. Auxiliary intake doors position indicator displays the word open. After a check of the engine gauges, press space. Once both engines are started, you must ask the ground crew to disconnect the air compressor unit. \radio menu,
Chief, disconnect
F8
ground air supply.
crew, F5 ground air supply,
Copy.
F2 disconnect.
Ground air supply is
Once
now
the ground
disconnected.
crew reports that the ground compressed air units have been disconnected, press space.
Chief, disconnect ground air supply. Copy. Ground air supply is now disconnected.
You must now check the operability of the weapon control system radar. On the left control is the radar panel. Set the mode switch to standby position. On the radar display on the instruments panel, wait 30 seconds for the horizon line to be displayed. The radar will then switch to warm-up mode. Warning: due to the possible overheating, the radar can operate on the ground for no more than 10 minutes. If necessary to stay on the ground longer, set the radar mode switch to the off position and return to the standby shortly before takeoff. To set the mode switch back to the off position, use the left mouse button or press the 9 key. On the lower side of the fuselage, in front of the main landing gear compartment, are two hydraulically operated air brakes that can be deflected down to 45 degrees. The air brakes are controlled by the 3-position thumb switch on the right engine throttle. Set the air brake switch to the retracted position by right mouse clicking the switch or by pressing. The F5E has an automatic wing control system. The wing control system includes the deflection of the leading edge slats and trailing edge flaps, which are used for safe takeoff, maneuvering, long-distance flights, and safe landing. This is controlled by the flaps lever, located behind the throttles, and the thumb switch on the right engine throttle. The control lever can be set to the following positions: emer up full retraction, independent of thumb switch position. Thumb SW, mechanization is controlled by the thumb switch. Full extension, independent of thumb switch position. The thumb switch has the following modes: up, full mechanization retraction, used for maximum distance flight with all types of payload. Fixed mechanization position, provides minimum fuel consumption and improves lifting capabilities of the wing at lower speeds and used for maximum distance flight with external stores. Auto, automatic mechanization control, depending on angle of attack and/or control signal from onboard computer. Leave the control mechanization lever behind the throttles in the thumb SW position. Set the thumb switch on the right engine throttle to the auto on the wing control mechanization indicator in the left portion of the instrument panel. The full mode is displayed. This is because the wing controls are in the auto mode and the aircraft is stationary. After takeoff and landing gear retraction, the control mode will change itself to auto. Stability augmentation system makes the aircraft easier to fly by controlling the stabilizer and rudder. It automatically dampens pitch and yaw oscillations, and it provides. It is now time to set the pitch trimmer for takeoff, depending on aircraft configuration, presence of pylons, stores, missiles on launchers, and gun ammunition. If the trimmer is now set to takeoff position, a strong negative pitching movement will occur at takeoff. This can result in a crash, especially if the aircraft has a significant takeoff weight. Optimal positions of the pitch trimmer pointer for various takeoff configurations. No ammunition for guns, no stores, 6. Drop tanks, ammunition, missiles, 7. Drop tanks, ammunition, missiles, bombs, rockets, 8. Ammunition, missiles, bombs, rockets, containers, 9. Because of its location at the very left top of the instrument panel, under the hood, it is difficult to see the trimmer pointer. To simplify, you can enable the controls indication, right control plus enter. The pitch line indicates the position of the trimmer, comparing it with the label, corresponding to the full trimmer deflection. Set the trimmer to a value of 6 by pressing the right control plus period and right control plus semicolon keys. Check to make sure that the air-fueled pressure is set correctly on the altimeter. Set 0 altitude on the altimeter using the pressure knob by pressing the left alt plus left shift plus A and left alt plus left shift plus S keys, or use the mouse wheel. All that is left now is to set up the artificial horizons. Enable the backup gauge by rotating the pull to cage knob clockwise until it sets into its recessed position by rotating the mouse wheel or by pressing the left alt plus left shift plus V keys.